Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to share in my lesson this morning about the spiritual laws of the universe, and that everything is an outcome of spirit, which is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniactive. I want to speak of the law of increase that takes place in our lives, that it increases no matter how we use it. We could use it negatively, we could use it constructively, but the law still operates in our life. I want to share with you the idea that there's never a scarcity in the universe, nor is there any competition. Now, you may argue with me, but there's no competition and there's never a lack in any area, because that which is infinite knows itself everywhere, and it knows itself, completing itself and accepting itself. Now, the self that I'm speaking of is the prospering consciousness that is in every single one of us, even though our lives may have every evidence in front of us of being have-not person. And a have-not person who experiences that on a habitual level is looking at what they don't have. And what they don't have becomes so deeply subjectified that it becomes a pattern within themselves. Now, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about a consciousness of prospering power within us. Money doesn't prosper us, but a consciousness of wealth, a consciousness of abundance, a consciousness of awareness in our realization. It's never a lack. Lack is not our problem as much as a lack of awareness. And when we have a whole new awareness about ourselves here today, there's a tremendous law that we attract into our experience that brings the good in our lives pressed down and running over. Now, that's a law. Not because I'm addressing it, but a law that I understand. A law that I grew up in consciousness and studying the science of mind. I mean, there's absolutely no virtue in being poor. None whatsoever. Those were wasted years, or wasted thoughts. The idea that we come into the realization that we are rich in spirit, rich when it comes to love, rich when it comes to beauty, rich when it comes to peace, rich when it comes to life. We are the riches of the Spirit itself, because it is God's love that sustains and maintains us every step of the way. We should never withhold our good in life. We should never withhold anything, because we are the inlet and the outlet through which the universe expresses itself. That's what we are. And if you are not demonstrating in your life, then there's something about the outlet that's not working. Nor is there something about the inlet that's not working. The system is jammed. Now, we can unjam it. We unjam it by getting a whole new consciousness about ourselves. Let me give you an example of a magnet, an ordinary magnet. You take filings, steel filings from a magnet, and you just pour it on there, and they adhere immediately to the magnet, do they not? Because it's magnetized. Take another piece of steel that is not magnetized and place filings upon it, and nothing happens. Nothing happens because it lacks that magnetic pull. It lacks the law of attraction. It lacks the consciousness of holding and giving and supporting. There's no support there. So when we come into the realization, the spirit within us magnetizes. It magnetizes. Its love magnetizes. Its joy magnetizes. Its presence magnetizes. And this is what we must feel. We must feel that when a pebble hits a calm pool of water, that pebble, the moment it hits the water, it makes a splash, but there's ripples, and it sends these ripples out. We must know that ideas are what we work with. Ideas in consciousness. These are the ideas that we need to work on. It's ideas that make us feel terrible. It's ideas that make us feel poor. It's ideas that make us feel lack. Those are ideas. That's the only thing we have to deal with. And when we change our ideas about ourselves, and when we change our ideas about poverty, when we change our ideas and move into a consciousness that the wealth of God is the wealth that I enjoy and experience in my life. God's wealth. Because there's no withholding. absolutely no withholding on the part of God. And you're going to say, if that's true, why in Sand Hill don't I have more of it? More of what? More of what? You've got it very clear. More of life. Life. Jesus, the teacher, said, I have come that you might have life, and that you might have it more abundantly. It's life. We want to express life. We want to experience life. And life contains within itself, it contains within itself all that we need in our consciousness. Because we add to our joy. You know, the universe owes you. Remember what I'm saying? The universe owes you. The world doesn't owe you. The universe owes you. Because you are an outcome of the universe. Where can you go where God's not there? Where can you go where the law doesn't operate? Where can you go where you don't experience life? It's everywhere present. So when we expand our consciousness into that awareness, this is the truth that we want to have that sets us free. Spiritual laws. The laws that say to you and say to me, learn of me. Let me give you an example. In the Old Testament, in Kings, there was a woman who lost her husband. And her husband left her with many debts. The creditors were closing in on her, and she was very fearful and had a consciousness of uncertainty. She had 2 sons. And as the creditors were coming closer and closer to her, if she could not meet her obligation, then this woman, with her sons, would be taken from her. Elisha comes on the scene. Wonderful lesson in the Scriptures. Elijah comes on the scene, and she turns to him and appeals to him, do something. I'm a widow, I have no husband, I have debts, they're going to take everything, and even my 2 children. And he said to her, what do you have in your house? Let me repeat that. What do you have in your house? And she looked at Elijah, and she said, I only have a little oil. All I have is a little oil. And he said to her, get additional vessels. Get additional vessels. I have none. Get additional vessels. Bring them to the house. Bring them to that house and start pouring the oil. And she got the additional vessels, took what she had, blessed it, and started to pour. And they poured and poured and poured and poured and poured until all the vessels were filled. Now what does this mean? Let's take it in our interpretation. What it means in the realization, when he said, what do you have in your house? Where's the house? It's not a dwelling. Here's the house. Here's the house. I only have this much strength. I only have this much happiness. I only have this much good. I only have this much money. I only have. And he said to her, you need additional vessels. Open the vessels. Open your consciousness. Open. And some of us say, how can I open it when that's all I have? This is all I have. Open. Get the additional vessels. Add to your vision. Add to your faith. Add to your trust. Add to your awareness. Increase your consciousness. And we say to ourselves, how could I? That's all I have. So we wonder then, who keeps us where we are? The law. Not God, the law. Because God already gave. God already gave. When Ernest Holmes said when I was attending, he says, all that you already desire already exists in mind. And I went, where? Because I wasn't having it in my experience. It exists in mind. Well, we live in mind. We live in the mind of God. We move in the mind of God. We have our being in the mind of God. And what he was saying, it exists, but is there a consciousness of acceptance within me? Is there consciousness of reality within me? Or am I so conscious of what I don't have, so conscious of my fears, so conscious of my worries, so conscious of my frustrations, so conscious of my failures? How in Sam Hill could I demonstrate? Because that's where my consciousness is. It's in the have-not consciousness. So let's take today. And no matter what you have, the more you dwell on what you don't have, the more you support what you don't have, and the more it becomes so deeply subjectified in your consciousness, and you continue to experience it. So we have to change. Change. What do we change? Ideas. Ideas. There are ideas that make us poor. There are ideas that make us happy. There are ideas that make us sad. There are ideas that make us successful. These are ideas, but not ideas that we merely affirm. I mean, you don't just affirm, you embody. You embody these ideas. We need to take here today, we have within ourselves, well, I've deprived myself so long, and I've had so many things in my life that I never have enough to really demonstrate. You never will. You never will. Until you come into the realization that I'm talking about a law, a spiritual law of abundance. A spiritual law. And the principle doesn't say, this side of the sanctuary, God is saying, I'll bless. This side, I'm not quite sure. No, it doesn't work. It's equally divided. You could breathe as much as you want. You can inhale as much as you want to inhale. Are you robbing anyone? No, you're not robbing anyone. So we need to come into the realization that if the teacher said, the kingdom of heaven is within, the kingdom of heaven is within, then we need to go into the house of our own consciousness. We need to correct the past beliefs. We need to correct if we have a consciousness of lack. We need to correct if we have a consciousness of failure. We need to correct if we have a consciousness of poverty. We need to correct those. Because if we don't correct them, it's just like cutting your grass. Next week it's going to grow again. And you cut it again. Next week it'll grow again. It'll grow again until you pull it out. And we come into that consciousness. So when we correct, we need to correct. God, well, I have to come into my own awareness. God doesn't withhold. Then who in Sam Hill is? I'm using Sam Hill a lot today, am I not? Yeah. So you have to come into the realization that who's withholding? No one. It really is knowing. It's there. It's there. But if I can't see it, if I can't relate to it, if I can't identify it, if I don't have the consciousness, I've had people say, I've been without so long, I don't know what it feels like to have. Ah! There's your answer. If you feel that you've been without so long, the Lord will say, I'll support you. I'll support you in that manner. I'll make sure you never have enough. That's exactly what the Lord will do. So we come into that realization of consciousness, of knowing that we are to inherit. We are to inherit, not the past. And we are to inherit the good that is ours by divine right. I love this statement in the Scriptures. Now we are sons and daughters of the living God. Do you believe that? You haven't convinced me one iota. Yeah. Then if we are sons and daughters of the living God now, then we need to see ourselves in that capacity. Now that is not sacrilegious. No, the teacher taught us. He said, this that I do, you can do also, and even greater. Even greater. And so Jesus said, the poor will be with you always. He didn't say occasionally. He said they'll be with you always. Because there are many people who love to deny, who love to deprive, who love to do without, and will let you know how much they are sacrificing. They enjoy it. Now all I'm going to say is continue. Continue to enjoy it. But when you begin to know here today that the universe pours itself, but you have to have a consciousness of love. Money is not your problem. I want to repeat that. Money is never a problem. It's a lack of ideas, a lack of creativity, a lack of unity, a lack of recognition, a lack of awareness. That's what it is. Money is never a problem. Because there's a lot of people with a lot of money who die terribly poor. So it's not that. So it's a consciousness that you can say to yourself, I have a rich Father, a rich universe, a wealthy universe, a law of increase. I bring into my experience the substance that I need. Now, if we could have a paradigm shift here today, a complete paradigm shift, and begin to bless. Begin to bless and begin to feel the substance of God. Now, I'm not telling you that right after church you run down to Nordstrom and shop like nobody's business. That's not what I'm teaching you. That's not what I'm teaching. I believe that if we can say to ourselves here today, I feel the wealth of God. I feel the wealth of God. Not money. Not money. The wealth of its love. The wealth of its joy. the wealth of its creativity, the wealth of its consciousness. I feel, that's the wealth we have to feel. And when we get into that realization, we begin to carry ourselves in a whole new manner. And that's what Elijah was saying. You need to add, you need new vessels in your consciousness. So when you come into the realization of adding, expanding, and coming into that whole new deepening of realization. So we look at ourselves, that we are here. It says in Genesis, and God created us and called us good, very good. And I love that. And then God said, to you, and to myself, now go forth, be fruitful, and multiply. You remember those words? What happened to them? They got to be applied, not just said. It's the application. They have to be applied. And then we realize in our consciousness that when we have a whole new concept, a whole new self-image, a whole new awareness about the I am that I am. This is what I am. This is the new consciousness. And I respect that and I accept that. I identify my God self, my new self, my realization that I'm not afraid to love and give love. I'm not afraid to be joyous and give joy. I'm not afraid to be myself. That consciousness, that freeing consciousness, that consciousness that breaks the binds, there's an outpouring of the universe to each and every one of us. And it lifts us. It lifts us into a new spiritual realm of identity. Somewhere in the scriptures it says, it not only comes to us, it comes to us pressed down and running over. I'm not talking about lemon meringue pie. I'm talking about the law. The law. The law. Spiritual laws. Now you have an opportunity here today to change the direction of your life. But it's never outwardly. We never have to change the outward. We have to change in our consciousness. What's the direction? What's the concept? What is my concept? What is my belief? What are my feelings? And these are the parts of us that need to be re-examined. These are the parts of us that need to come into a consciousness that there's fear and lack, and the past is, well, I grew up in a home. Then put closure to it. Put closure. Put closure to the past. Put closure to your fears. Put closure to your uncertainties. Today, the Sanskrit says so beautifully. Today it says, the Sanskrit says, well lived, takes care of the days yet to come. You have a choice. You have a choice to leave here on a wonderful spiritual consciousness and stay that way and support the new image of yourself, support the new concept, and know that God sustains, maintains, and directs you in perfect health, perfect love, perfect joy, perfect peace. Or you can allow the old subjective mind mesmerize you right back again into the old pattern. The old pattern. And sometimes we say, God, I'll give you a week. You think that's going to work? It wouldn't work. No. You get out of anything exactly what you put in. But remember, I'll close with this thought, and you're familiar with it. As within, so without. So we have to really go in here and say, this is the house. This is the house of the Lord. This is the house. God gave us everything. Everything. And remember, the teacher Jesus says it so beautifully. If only we could have that same faith. I thank you, Father, he said. I thank you. I thank you. For I know you hear me always. Do we have that conviction? That's what we must believe. That's what we must believe. That we are corresponding. We are corresponding with the Spirit. And the Spirit that we correspond with responds to each and every one of us at the level of our acceptance. At the level of our belief. Now today, let's believe. Let's believe in this principle. Let's trust it. And let's apply it. And let's know it works. God bless you.